There is an issue in this country which shouldn't really be considered an issue. Something if seen from a purely rational, objective, and analytical lens is not really an issue, but a strength to unite every single state of this beautiful nation. This is an issue that has caused violent discord currently and historically, starting back to the riots in Tamil Nadu in the 1960s over Hindi imposition. To now, we see the southern states, in particularly Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, and even Maharashtra, reacting negatively against Hindi imposition, reacting against governmental policies that seem to support Hindi for a fear of their own native tongue will be destroyed. The present government has put forth an utterly ridiculous and utterly devoid of logical policy to solve this issue. But it has not solved this issue. It has exaggerated it and made it worse and only shown us what it really is to the people in power. Not what's good for the long term benefit of this country, not what's good for the benefit of the common man, but for whatever is good so they can hold power for as long as possible by appeasing each and every side, neither offending this side nor offending that side, because that's what a politician is. Politician is not one who has virtues, ethics, or morals. He is one who is the most skilled at tying together, forging through whatever means and whatever threads possible alliances of the most vastly diametrically opposite groups. Politicians. This is their skill, this is their ability. They're not skilled in leadership, they're not skilled in governmentship, they're not skilled in administration, nor are they skilled in technological implementation. They're not good at making decisions, they're not good at looking for the welfare vision of this nation, or of any nation for that matter. What they are good at is managing coalitions, creating the most unlikely of possible alliances so they can get their body on that seat they so desire, their life's purpose. Not to be a leader, but to get that seat. And to get that seat and hold on to that seat, we often see them implement ridiculous policies. And that policy is very evident in what has been proposed by the current ruling party's proposition in Maharashtra, for example. The three language policy. An utterly ridiculous, futile, and extremely divisive and unfair policy. The three language policy. What is the three language policy? The three language policy says that the students, children, basically the next generation, which is why this is so very important and not something to be overlooked like a science or physics or a chemistry subject, that whether they remove this lesson, that chapter, it really doesn't matter in the end because it's just chemistry, physics, maths, it doesn't matter. But language does, because language is an identity. It either builds this nation or it corrodes it. And a language is a person's heart and his soul. You cannot rip out his language, you cannot rip out his culture, you cannot rip out his ethnicity because he is that. And even if he wants to change it, he cannot change it. He's born with it and he will die with it. Look at the United States, for example. The African Americans there who originated from Africa have lived in the United States for more than 3 centuries and they have almost no connection to their ancestral homelands. They do not speak any of the native tongues, nor do they have the cultures and traditions. No, they have been completely cut out, unfortunately, completely ripped out of their own ancestry because that was the poor and unfortunate reality of slavery back in the 1700s, and they lost their culture. And even after so much progress, the emancipation, the civil rights movements, and so many years of excellent progress that has been happening to uplift their community, we can still see that they have been implicitly and subtly not yet been treated as equals. They have not been fully integrated, and they will not be. Just as how a Polishman in Germany can never really become a German. A person's identity is his own price. By erasing a person's tongue, by erasing his culture, by trying to eradicate his language, it is a devastating and horribly immoral and wrong decision. Certainly, all people can be as one with diversity because diversity is not an obstacle for unity. Diversity is not an obstacle for this nation. What an obstacle is to destroy certain languages, destroying and invalidating the existence of a people. For example, to make this point more clearly, why don't you just go try calling an Arab a Turk? Why don't you just go try to call a Kurd a Turk? See what kind of response will you get. If it's anything less than a punch in your face, you can come back here and you can say something else. A person's identity is very important. In fact, it is that identity that holds him in his society, it allows him to determine his position in society, and it is good for his well being. By the three language policy, they aim to propose three languages for the next generation to learn: English, Hindi, and their native language. So, this would be for a Bengali, he would learn Bengali, he would learn Hindi, and he would learn English. For a Keralite, he would learn Malayalam, he would learn English, he would learn Hindi. And anyone with even the slightest percentage of a brain will realize how hard it is for a child to master three languages and why it is actually such a futile attempt to learn three. It is not really needed. It is a waste of resources of the government, and it is also a hotspot policy, not beneficial in the long term. Because when you have three languages, now again the problem will come is what is the unifying language? Some people say it should be Hindi. Some people say it should be English. The fact is, neither of them should be in the long term. A unifying language should be something that is not imposed from outside like English, nor something that benefits only certain states like Hindi. No, it should be something that has roots in our history, something that is right and will have a strong cultural upliftment for this benefit of society and will make and our belief in our society and our identity more proud of, something to be more proud of, and will in fact do the greatest of all, will unite us. That policy should simply be this, a two language policy, like any sane country has. Take Japan. Japan, the first language is Japanese. What's the second most popular language? English, the global language. What's Korea? Korean. And what's the second most language? English. What's German? First is German. Second is English. What's French? First is French. Second is English. So am I supporting English? No, you would be mistaken. The two language policy here is using a language, the oldest language, a language that has united this nation throughout, a language that is the veins of our historical identity and our culture, spanning millenniums. It is Sanskrit. The two language policy must and should only be of Sanskrit and the native language. The first thing you probably be thinking is, this guy himself is speaking English. I understand that fact. I totally understand that fact. Yes. Yes. I'm speaking English and you're listening and understanding English. That doesn't mean that I endorse English and that English is good for the well being of this country in the long term. In the long term, Sanskrit and a native tongue is the best course. Why? Sanskrit is historically based and is not partial to any state because every state will be equal in this regard. No state is naturally already advantaged, like how Hindi is advantageous already for the Hindi speaking states. Sanskrit also will give us a stronger sense of identity. It will also, yes, it will give us these three benefits. That's right. And native language, obviously, everyone has a right to their own native language and must preserve it. If you're from Manipur, Manipuri should be the language. If you're from Karnataka, Kannada must be the language. If you're from Maharashtra, Marathi should be the language. If you're from Gujarat, Gujarati should be. No language should be extinct. And the uniting language crossing all the state boundaries should be Sanskrit and Sanskrit only. English eventually should be used only as a stepping stone language to connect to the outside world if needed. But as the main two languages of this country should only be English, Sanskrit and the native language. English should be an option, just like how in America Spanish is just an option, just like how in certain schools in India French, German, Spanish is optional. It should be a choice. What shouldn't be a choice is forcing a poor kid to learn three languages. It is ridiculous and it is in futile. A two language solution is what works in the long term, not in the short term, definitely not in the short term. It sounds almost ridiculous, but everyone knows that in the long term, the only language that can truly unite us, the only language which is equal to everyone from every state and every location is Sanskrit. Because that language is not being used by any state in particular right now, nor does it give a political advantage, nor a financial or linguistic advantage to any state. It is fair for all. And it has been, historically speaking, the only language that has united us across centuries, across the different kingdoms and dynasties from different places, from the south to the north, to the west to the east. Sanskrit and a native language. Other languages should be optional, such as English, Spanish, German. Basically, it is the person's free will to learn and choose whatever he wants is going to benefit his life. But these two languages definitely should be the solution to the language problem that is currently being blown up in our nation. In fact, with this policy implemented, we can expect greater unity, a greater identity, because one of the disadvantages of using English is it erodes our Indian identity, it erodes our Aryan identity, it erodes our Bharatiya identity, and it opens the way for a Western identity. It opens the way for us to emulate Western custom, Western tradition, Western ideologies, and just becoming copycats of the West in the end. It breaks down our identity. I'm speaking in English. I understand that very fact. I understand that it can seem ironical. Therefore, that this policy should not be implemented right now, but should be implemented to the younger generations who have a fresh state of mind. To now go and teach Sanskrit to everyone is absolutely ridiculous, and I do not endorse it. It is completely unpragmatic and unrealistic to do that. What it should be done is the true language policy starting from generation from beginning. Sanskrit not used cannot be used as a political tool. It cannot be used as a force of class division. It cannot be forced as something that divides people. It can unite us. Sanskrit and the native language. Sanskrit and Malayalam, Sanskrit and Kannada, Sanskrit and Hindi, Sanskrit and Awadhi, Sanskrit and Bhojpuri, Sanskrit and Manipuri, Sanskrit and Bengali, Sanskrit and Marwari. This way, every single state and every single group's identity is protected, yet we forge an even stronger connection between us and making India the truly strong country that it has the potential to be. A two language policy is the way, the second language being Sanskrit. Together with this policy in mind and with the common language, equal to all, benefiting none in particular, this nation will have overcome one of its most fundamental divisions, the language and ethnic group divide. Because as long as these divisions exist, we cannot spend our time focusing on development. We cannot spend our time focusing on the rest of the world and seeing them get ahead of us at an alarmingly scary pace, only for us to pay the price later if we have all these divisions. And we must solve these divisions immediately so we can focus on the real things that matter, the real things that threaten our way of life and threaten our sovereignty and our control in this world. We can make this country powerful and great if we choose to see for the long term. I choose to see for the long term. Sanskrit and your native tongue. This is the solution.